For a brief introduction, the Office of Career Services, or OCS, works to prepare and empower every student and alumni to realize their full potential and help them feel prepared to cultivate a lifetime of opportunity and to create a positive impact on society. And our summer research program at HMC engages students in full-time research each summer, where students pursue research projects alongside faculty members across nearly every department of the college. So to start us off, I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, Shannon.
Hi, everyone. I am Shannon Braun. I am the director of the Office of Career Services, and it's my honor to be with you today. So I'm going to go through a few slides, tell you a little bit more about our office. We're going to talk about the resources that we provide. I'm going to share some feedback on how the seniors, the outcomes of their graduation, that we took a survey when they graduated last year. And then we're going to talk about how you can support your students' professional development at home. So before we get started, I just want to introduce myself a little bit further. So I am fairly new to MUD, so I guess I should think about not calling myself new anymore. I'm coming up on a year here next week, but I am surrounded by engineers. There's my family on the left-hand side. I have my husband's an engineer and two college-age boys, both in engineering programs. And then my daughter is a freshman in high school, currently thinking she likes the bio side of things, so maybe she'll be STEM in that way. I did spend 15 years at another Claremont college before moving over to MUD, where I held two director level roles as the director of admissions, and then I spent time as the director of corporate partnerships. KGI is very similar to MUD, where we have the capstone experience that is in partnership with industry for those that are on a few of our programs. And so I did a lot of work looking for those opportunities and really enjoyed it. But happy to be here and working with your students now. So thank you, Erin, for sharing the mission of our office. It's right there in the middle of the screen. And we're going to spend some time today talking about some of the initiatives that we have that help us achieve this mission. I did want to start, though, by just acknowledging the fact that it is kind of rough out there. And so if you have your student who says, I'm trying, and, I've sent out so many applications, I'm not hearing back, let me just validate the fact that it is a little bit harder for those that are entering the workforce these days than it has been in the past. That doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that it's more important that they engage with our office so we can support them in that journey. I just put a couple articles up, and this is mostly speaking to the class that graduated last year. But I think things are getting better, but it's still kind of a tough market out there. And a little nod to the fact that that Fortune article mentions that tech companies have scaled back their aggressive on-campus recruitment tactics. And we can say that does hold true for us. We're not seeing as many in-person events from some of these larger companies. They just don't really have to these days. So I guess if you think about the housing market analogy, it's it's a buyer's market versus a seller's market. The power is kind of back in the corporations right now. So they're not doing as much as they used to. And then our students are encountering a lot of competition when they do apply. So I have this picture on the left that just shows an engineering internship opportunity up in the Bay Area where there's almost 1,000 applicants. And then on the right, this is an email with one of our alum talking about, hey, how can I help? And we're talking about, well, you could be helpful if you could maybe highlight some of our mudders who are applying. And he's just acknowledging the fact that I know last year there was 2,000 applicants for my internships last year. So just again, to acknowledge the fact that it's not as easy as it has been in the past, but we can help. And in both of these instances, like on the left-hand side, this company, Joby, we know the talent acquisition manager. When a mudder applies, we'll email them and say, hey, there's a mudder in your application pool, take a look at it. Or our alum on the right, who took resume books from our mudder specifically to hiring managers for the internships. And I know of at least one and maybe two mudders that will be interning at his company. So it's not, we don't want our mudders just to do it on their own. We do want them to partner with us so that we can use our network to help them out. There's another way that we're helping. You may or may not be familiar with something called an application tracking system. So if you're the hiring company and you're looking at 2,000 resumes, you might think, what am I going to do to get through these resumes? Well, a lot of them are using a software on the back end, and you can see this graphic here that's, almost 100% of these Fortune 500 companies are using some type of software to do an initial cut. And they're using it, keyword searches, et cetera. And then even when we get down into smaller companies, a large portion of them are using these types of softwares. So I've got a little video here that's highlighting a tool that we just brought on this year that we encourage our students to use to help them have their resumes that are ready to be viewed by a system like this. So hopefully this video plays. Tell me if it doesn't.
Looking to spruce up your resume in just a few clicks? Introducing Smart Resume and Editor by VMock, an online resume editing tool. With this tool, you get a score on your resume and see areas for improvement right away. Convert your resume to one of college's recommended templates with a single click. Save your improved resume in PDF or Docs format, ready to send. And there's more. To match your resume against a job description, use Resume Optimizer. This tool easily highlights priority keywords, ensuring your resume aligns perfectly with the job description. Identifies skill gaps and bridges them, making you a stronger candidate. Assesses formatting and content placement to ensure your resume passes through applicant tracking systems. Your ultimate resume toolkit is here.
So, again, we don't want our students to just use an AI software. We want to do this in complement with a meeting with our office so we can kind of go through what the software suggested and how to even further improve the resume. So that's one thing that we've brought online. The other thing is, again, a nod to trying to work with our network and our partners to have opportunities that are not, I guess this one says MUD specific. This one was MUD specific, where we had a partner of ours collect some resumes and then take them around to his portfolio companies. But also, much like the alum that I just highlighted a few slides ago, where we can use our network to kind of pull out our mudders, because the company knows how impressive our students are and they want more of them. Help our mudders stand out with a resume book on the side. So those are some of the other ways we're trying to work through this tough job market. But here is an overall high level idea of all of the things that our office does. Oftentimes I hear the two most prominent one with career fair, which is what's pictured in the middle. Certainly we do career fair, and then help with resumes. Those are two things that we definitely do. But we do a lot of other things that help the professional development of our students. We want to ensure that they're supported along the whole spectrum of things that they might do when they're considering what their next step is after MUD. So that includes career exploration, how to try to source opportunities. If they do get the opportunity to have an interview, we want to practice that with them so they're not going into those interviews cold. Oftentimes I'll hear like, oh, I just blew it on that, first one, because, and they might still do that, right? But if we can practice with them and help them like think about some of the things that might come up, that will make for the best case scenario when they go into those interviews. You can see a lot of things like having employers come and share their opportunities, specifically bringing in alumni to talk about their different career paths, and then working on LinkedIn. So there's a whole bunch of things that we do, and I'll highlight a few more of those here. So specifically when we talk about workshops, there are a lot of different topics that we cover, but one thing I wanted to highlight with the ones depicted here is that they're not always performed by the staff in our office. In fact, we prefer to have outside speakers because oftentimes they're the ones that are closest to the topic that they're talking about. So for when you see the grad school admissions panel on the right, those are representatives from different grad schools. I can't really represent their grad school as well as they can. We think our alumni are the best, and so we want them involved when they either come talk about their company. So with Waymo, that's a Harvey Mudd alum that's talking about their company, or have them involved in our resume reviews. I'm highlighting a parent up here on the left hand of the screen that talked about negotiations. So you guys all have your special talents that perhaps could be helpful as we're trying to teach some of these topics. So when I get to the end of my slide deck, you'll see me asking for your help in whatever way you can. Or we have our peers. So we have students that will help other students because they're literally going through it themselves. So in the case of the tech interviews for our computer science students, we'll have our more senior levels computer science students share some of their tips as they've been through many of these types of interviews. This is one of my favorite things that we do. It's called the Grub Club. It is, I like it because it's predictable. It's every week, usually, unless there's like, spring break or finals. And we cover a lot of the topics that we would do in some of those sessions, but since it's regular, it's sort of like a way to just come think about your career once a week. We do bring in food. I know this graphic says the Hawk, which is our dining hall, but we actually do it now in a separate room, and we bring in outside food, and that's a draw for students because even though we have the best dining hall in the Claremont colleges, I believe, and I think a lot of students do, they still like outside food. So it's not all about the food, although that does help draw them in, and then we'll sneak in a bunch of topics that are good for them when it comes to their career. So Grub Club has been really successful, and it's been a way for students to kind of spend a little time thinking about their career when they're so busy outside. Another one of my favorite things I'd like to promote, I think it's underutilized. So hopefully we can get your students to take advantage of the one-on-one advising. That's why we're here. We have 6 peers that work in our office, and I have 4 staff members, and we're all available for scheduled appointments through our handshake system. And you can see here the top types of topics. So when they schedule an appointment, they say what they want to talk about. And most often it is resume. I mean, that's an important thing when you're thinking about looking for an opportunity. And but then you can see the different types, including like interview practice or personal statements if they are applying to research programs or grad school. And that's the bulk of it. And then we have had just this year, we've had almost 600 appointments, and some of those are repeat. That's one of my favorite things is like, let me work with a student, build a connection. We've done a bunch of changes on your resume. Now you're going to go out and use it. Come back and tell me, is it working? Is it not working? What roadblocks are you hitting? Please come tell us the successes when things work out. We love hearing that too. So in that 585, there's some repeat visits, which we encourage and we love. We are also getting out and going on the road. I think that this is an amazing way for someone to kind of experience, just like many of your students might have done campus tours. It's really hard to envision yourself somewhere if you haven't stepped foot. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's so much better if you can experience something and either rule in or rule out. So we're doing these treks. We try to program them over the breaks so we don't take students away from the courses that they have to do. So that means the fall break or spring break. The one trip to Edwards Life Sciences you see up in the corner, sorry, faculty or Kathy, if they missed any of your classes, that one was during the school day. We try not to do that. But again, the point of these is to visit different types of companies, talk about different career paths, and really get to know from those that are working at those companies what a day in the life is like. And so that can help one of our students either rule in or rule out something, or just envision themselves in a different role. Another thing we're working on building is a video library. So the goal here is to collect and amass feedback from alumni working in different industries and different positions. Again, when we're talking about career exploration and trying to envision, does that sound good to me or does that not sound good to me? Hearing from our alumni is a really great way to do that. So here we have Matt, who's a software engineer at Microsoft. We might, I hope to collect videos for software engineers in different types of industries and different types of roles. And each time their alum is talking about it, they'll have something different to say, which is important for our students to understand. And I also love that when we talk to alumni, they share their failures and successes. So maybe we had someone that was grad school focused and they'll share, hey, I didn't get into the grad school I wanted right away. But I did, something for a year or two, and then I applied again and I was successful. So those stories are really helpful for our students who kind of get Like, they feel like there's a straight path and that everybody must be doing the straight path that got them there. But I think it helps them to hear that sometimes it's a little bit crooked and that's okay. Everything's going to work out. So now let's talk about last year's class. So we do a survey every April. In fact, it's coming up. We'll do it again for this graduating class in about 20 days, asking them what they plan to do after they graduate. So I guess I want to highlight that this happens the end of April, even before they graduate. And most schools will survey their alumni 6 months out. And so for me, coming new to Mud, I was like super impressed to see all of this information coming back from students before they even graduate. So here we see that in the pie graph, about 53% of our graduating class last year wanted to go into work in industry, and about 28% were looking to go to grad school. Further on the right, you'll see that of those that were looking for a job, 62% had it secured by the end of April, and 38% were still seeking. And again, this little asterisk I'm putting here is that most schools will look 6 months out, because it's completely fine for a senior to say like, hey, I just did something really hard. I graduated from Harvey Mudd and I haven't really thought about my career yet or focused on it. And so give me a minute. I'll work on it over the summer. And then that's why schools will check 6 months later. But Mudders are very, focused. And in fact, a lot of them had that secured. And you can see grad school. Okay, well, that is something that you would be doing and be ready to report out on by the time you graduate. So most of them last year had already accepted their position into grad school. I did want to highlight this because we were just talking about a tough job market last year. This shows that same question that I just talked about 3 years in a row. So back in 2022, of those that were looking to work in industry, almost 85% had secured that role by the time end of April came around, and only 15% were looking. And you can see as the years progress that we're kind of going in the wrong direction, that it's been more difficult for our job seekers to have that secured before they graduate. And that's just a nod to what I was saying earlier, is that it's not been the easiest job market in the last couple of years. We have some reports that hopefully it's getting a little bit better for this grad class, but let's see how it goes once we do that survey. And for the grad school, it's been pretty 100% that have wanted to go have had those offers this and last year. It was a little bit of a fall off with some that are on the wait list. Let's see what happens this year with the due to the nature of how research is looking. And I'll leave that to Kathy. Hopefully we have the successes that we're looking for our students. If you're wondering where they go, we have been pretty consistent with some of our top employers. You see Microsoft there 2 years in a row. Again, we'll see what happens this year. And if you're curious, if you want to go back like 3, 4, 5 years, this is all available on our website. So you can kind of look for yourself where our grads have gone. And then the same thing for grad school. The majority that are going to grad school are PhD focused. Some are masters only, and then some have a few joint aspirations, including master's PhD or MD PhD. And here are our top grad schools and the top fields of study. And just remember that, computer science says that it's top, but we have a lot of computer science students versus the physics students. That program is a little bit lighter, but the percentage of students that go to grad school from different majors might be higher. So let's talk about you. Now it's like your homework time. Okay, so how can you help us support your student over the summer? I know this is a big question that parents often ask. What is typical for a student to do after their first, second, or third year? This again comes from that same survey that I was talking about, where we poll our seniors when they graduate, and they tell us what they did after their first, second, and third year. You can see for the first years, there's a few that do get internships, and just like you'd imagine, it's not that easy for a freshman to find an internship in industry. A lot of companies do their internship program because they're trying to hire their next. They want to hire from that, and so if you're working on a freshman, that's the long game, right? So a lot of them will look for juniors and seniors, mostly or sophomores and juniors that have had some more time in their study and are closer to the point where they could be offered a full-time position. a lot do research at Mud. I'm very I'm looking forward to Kathy's presentation. I'm really impressed with the amount of opportunities that we have for students. It's huge for our students to be able to gain that experience. It helps them down the road. And then some just go like I said, I have two college age boys, both of them after their freshman year, they came home. One worked at El Pollo Loco, one worked at Office Depot. I loved having them around. That's what they did after their freshman year. All things are good, but this is what Mudders have done. As you can see, as they progress through their second and third summers, more will do internships if they're, again, that percentage that want to work in industry after. The research positions are also pretty high, and those may be grad school focused students or focused that are students that are just really want to learn more in depth about the area that they're studying. And you can see how that progressed. So that's the typical path for a Mudder. But whatever they end up doing, there's a good story to tell. So again, I would encourage you to have your student come in. Let's work on the resume together. We can find transferable skills in just about anything. And I think that can be hard for students to think about. Like I've had so many say like, well, I'm not going to put the fact that I was a camp counselor on my resume. That's not relevant. Let's talk about what you did as that camp counselor that's very relevant to a future role that you want to do. These skills at the bottom, communication, leadership, maybe it was a technical role. So study abroad, there's a lot we can pull out of that. So please encourage your students to come talk to us about what they've done and how it can turn into a resume bullet point. If they do come home like my two boys did and hang out with you over the summer, there's still a lot that they can do to kind of like think about professional development. This is a great time for them to kind of hone in on some things that might be interesting to them. Perhaps they do some informational interviews with anyone in your network or the alumni network here at Mud. We are happy to introduce them to alum. We do that all the time. That might be in an area of interest, and maybe they have a couple of these informational interviews over the summer, and it helps them rule in or rule out. Because I think it's probably frustrating for the student to have we have had some meetings like, I don't know what I want to do. In fact, I want to do everything. And that can be difficult for them to even know where to start when it comes to finding opportunities. So if some of this work can be done, if they have time over the summer where they see, what it is to be in a day in the life of X industry or X job, help them kind of narrow in that can be helpful. But again, like I said, there's a lot of things that they can do that we can make into a resume bullet point, including like something that they might want an independent project. If they're very interested in building rockets and they just decided to do something on their own at home. Again, we can talk about that and how that can be, those skills can be added to their professional development. So we do want you to be a part of their professional journey as well. I know depending on your student, they may or may not be open to your advice in that area, but if they are open to it, there are conversations that you can be having with your student again about helping them narrow in or think about different options. Any type of involvement that they can do, even if again it's just like the baking club or some type of involvement that they can add to their teamwork, professional communication, all those skills. You can encourage that. And then I would say just be supportive like you always do. That a lot of the one-on-ones that we have here is just literally listening and having them talk through things. And we're happy to do that here. I know you're probably happy to do that at home. But yeah, just be patient and supportive because it is not the easiest job market that they're working in right now. Of course, we want you to suggest that they come visit us for sure. So here is other ways that you could help our office. I showed a bunch of workshops that we're always open to guest speakers. So please let us know if you have any connections or any particular topics that you might be able to share with our student population. We're happy to weave you into our programming. We are traveling, so if you have a particular site visit that you think might be interesting for our students, we can talk about that. And then we're also doing piloting a shadow program. So we'll be starting in right after graduation, matching some of our students up with alum, or it could be like, again, a parent, where the student would shadow them for one day and again experience what that career might be like for those that might not necessarily have another way to experience those careers. So these are lots of ways that you can help our office. Email us anytime. We'll also take your help reminding your student of a couple things that they can do. So, like I mentioned, one-on-ones are my favorite way to interact with your student. So they should know how to make an appointment on our system called Handshake. If they don't, they can email us or drop in anytime, and we'll help them work through the appointment system. And then also this has kind of been a topic that, I'm sure like if someone receives an offer, one of your children, they're going to be excited. They're going to want to come to you and talk to you about it, just like they'll talk to us. We hope that they do. We're trying to reinforce the fact that to think carefully and thoughtfully about offers that come. It's very common for an employer to say, oh, I'd like to offer you this position and I need to know in 2 days. And so, of course, the student's like, hey, let me just say yes, even though I'm not 100% sure. And then if something better comes along, they might change their mind. And, when that happens, it's very difficult for us to maintain the relationship with that employer. It's not great for your student if they had a relationship with that recruiter. So we can talk with them about ways to work with the company offering them something, and maybe they can get an extension. Maybe it really is, I have to know in 2 days. And then we want them to do that pros and cons and think carefully about it. And then lastly, we would love for them to stay in the know by checking out our communications that come out weekly. And on Handshake, we also have an Instagram as well. So here is all the ways to stay, although I don't know if the Twitter should be X, but here are all the ways that you and your student can stay in connection with us. And very thankful for this time with you and happy to take questions after Kathy's done.
Thank you, Shannon. Kathy, you want to take it away?
Yes, absolutely. So thanks so much, Shannon. It's wonderful to hear about all the great work at Career Services. So my name is Kathy Van Huvelen. I'm a chemistry professor at Harvey Mudd. This is year 13 for me at Harvey Mudd. And I currently have the very joyful job as serving as Associate Dean of Faculty, where I help run our summer research program. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what the program is, the logistics, and Shannon talked about these transferable skills and building leadership experience, and summer research is a great way to do that. Okay, so summer research is a 10-week period where students are exploring an important open-ended research question with their peers and with a professor. They typically work about 40 hours a week on average, and the dates are going to vary depending on which professor they work for. Some professors start research the day after graduation. Some professors wait and start research a little bit later. So your student would work that out with the lab they're joining. These are paid positions, which is very important. The pay rate for this year is up on your screen, $6,800 or $680 per week if you're doing less than 10 weeks. Most of our summer research students live on campus in the dorms. There's a charge for that. It's $32 per day. And some students instead find off-campus housing in the area. Now, the dining hall is not reliably open during the summer. So what Harvey Mudd does is we try to place students in dorms where there are kitchens. Students might go together to the grocery store. Sometimes they get together in little pods and take turns cooking dinner for their group of friends. But that's something to be aware of as well. The dining hall's hours are not open the same way that they are during the academic year. And who can participate? Anyone and everyone, all majors, all years, even first-year students after their first year. Now, I think we saw from Shannon's data that students are most often maybe rising juniors or seniors, but there's absolutely room for rising sophomores, and it's always good to apply. In my lab, I've hired a lot of rising sophomores, and they have done great work. We've spent time together learning the chemistry they're going to do, and we learned the techniques, and they make real, genuine contributions to the project. I'll also say that when I talk to students about research, especially first-year students, this might be the first opportunity they had to be in a lab. Maybe in high school, that was just not an option. And so I always tell them the story about my very first day of research as a college student. Everything in the lab was brand new to me. The only thing I knew how to do that day was how to refill the ice in the ice bath. So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do today. And then every day I learned more and I learned more. And by the end of college, the lab was one of my favorite spots on campus, and it was familiar. I knew how everything worked. And so if your student is interested in research, but intimidated by the learning curve, you can just remind them it's that way for everybody. And it's such a great skill to be able to walk into a new space and learn the ropes, right? I don't know how to do that yet, but I know I can build the skill. So in terms of what do we do all day during research, something else I did not know as a student, we spend a lot of time learning from each other. We learn from our professors and also learn from peers, because students are almost always part of a larger group of students, at least one other. There's classmates around who can help you and work with you. We spend time having lab meetings. So it's really common in research groups to get together, maybe talk about a scientific paper, present your work, and practice talking about your results and brainstorming together to work out, what does this odd result mean? Or this is really exciting, let's celebrate together. And now let's plan the next steps in the project. Students learn how to read the scientific literature, and this is definitely a skill because each discipline is a language in many ways. And it's very common that when students first start, it might take a whole day to work their way through a paper, and then they build the skill with practice of learning how to navigate this genre with a little bit more easily. And then all different disciplines do research. So your student might be working with a mathematician or a computer scientist. Maybe they're working on derivations or computational modeling. Maybe they're doing paper and pencil calculations with a theoretical physicist. So there might be a lot of work in this area. Or your student might instead be working with an experimentalist. I've shown here students working in a biochemistry lab. So maybe they're in a wet lab all day. We have professors who do field work with students. So this is a recent alum, Katie, who worked with our biology professor, Kathy McFadden, where they study coral reefs, and they go and they collect samples and then go back to the lab and do a lot of work looking at the genetic structure of these corals. Your student might be designing things. This could be in engineering specifically, or it might just be in a lab where we need a piece of equipment. And hey, at MUD, we have a machine shop and we can build it there. So your student might be doing some design. They might be building the apparatus themselves, whether that's part of the research itself or something to enable the research. There might be, we talked about fieldwork, there might be travel. So one of our faculty members, Lilia Hawkins, will sometimes go on research trips to Paris because Paris is the home of a large chamber to simulate clouds, the chemical composition of clouds. It's one of the state-of-the-art facilities in the world. She has a strong network with collaborators, and as a side benefit to her students, they get to be in Paris doing research during the day and then have that wonderful experience the rest of the time. Students also learn quite a bit about communication. We communicate with one another as peers in a scientific discipline. So students in my lab would learn how to speak the technical language of inorganic chemistry. And we also practice talking about our research with non-experts. That might be talking to donors who are coming to visit the lab or trustees. And it can be talking with scientists who are not experts in that field. A big way we do this is through our summer research poster celebration in September, where students from Harvey Mudd who did any kind of summer research can gather, share their results, and practice talking about science with the larger community. Students also write technical papers, and oftentimes when our faculty publish, it is with student co-authors. Some of our faculty are also doing research in education. What are the teaching methods that best facilitate learning? And so if you have students who are interested in education, we definitely have faculty working in that realm. And we also try to have fun during summer research. There are social events, there are seminars, there are lab tours and lab open houses. And for many years, we had baking competitions. It started in the chemistry department and expanded across other departments. And there were prizes for the most delicious dessert, but also the best chemistry themed dessert, the best decoration. So we try to have time for community building as well. And this community is really a big part of it. Students can form tight bonds with the people in their group. And I would also really encourage your student, if they're doing summer research, maybe practice talking with students in a different lab group. Or if there's a professor on campus during the summer who they want to connect with, maybe go and chat with that professor once or twice. I think building your network, kind of building your community can be such a valuable thing. And in the summer, there's no homework, right? There's not the same kind of busy schedule we have during the academic year. This can be a really nice time to practice building community. And also, in addition to just this broader community, this is really a way that faculty get to build mentoring relationships with your student. You work closely with your professor. Oftentimes, we are shoulder to shoulder with the students in the lab, training students. And so we really get to know your student well, which positions them to get a very nice letter of recommendation, right? We can tell future employers, graduate schools, hey, this student is amazing for these reasons. Here are the stories that I can tell you about the great work your student is doing. So in terms of the experience your student is going to gain, certainly there's disciplinary knowledge and technical skills. In my lab, you'd learn how to do computational chemistry and air-free inorganic synthesis. But more broadly, you'll learn problem-solving skills, right? Something goes wrong and you figure out how to make it work. You figure out the next step. Students learn communication and leadership skills. Being in a lab is a great opportunity to practice leadership. You're working with a team. If you've been in the lab for more than a summer, you might have the opportunity to train students, help set lab culture, brainstorm ideas. This is a great vehicle for leadership. Students have opportunities for networking within Harvey Mudd for the most part, but that can also be really important, especially for young students. And then when a student is applying for a job or graduate school, these are great things to have on their resume. And I think very importantly, oftentimes in high school, being good at STEM means you know the right answer to a question, right? I can do the worksheet, I can answer the question on the test, and that's what it means to be good at STEM. But to be a good scientist, a good mathematician, a good engineer, innovator, entrepreneur, inventor, it's a different set of skills. I mean, you don't know an answer because no one knows the answer to the question you're asking. Being a good scientist means you have to figure out what that answer is and convince other scientists that you're on the right track, right? And summer research is a great place to start making this intellectual and professional transition. And it's a transition that's hard, I think, for a lot of people. It was hard for a lot of faculty. It can be hard for our students. If you're used to knowing the right answer, you go into the lab and you try something and it doesn't work. That can be a surprising experience, but it's an important transition to go through. So the logistics of how to apply, one of the wonderful innovations that my colleague Mark Ilton in physics brought to Harvey Mudd was this undergraduate research opportunities portal. We wanted to advertise summer research positions in a common site so that students didn't have to just go from professor to professor asking around. And if you go to the website uro.hmc.edu, you'll see the timeline for each round of applications. It says when professors are posting projects, when students apply, and when professors are reviewing applications. So we've already kind of moved through this process for summer 2025, and we typically have 3 rounds of hiring every year. One in January, February, another round in August, about when the semester is starting, and then a round in November for positions in the spring term and possibly the next summer. Not every professor uses this website. So if your student says, oh, I really wish I could do research with this professor, but they're not on the URO, you can say, hey, go talk to that professor, ask them about their research, and see if there are positions available in their lab. We're a small community. It's a perfectly normal thing to do, and faculty love talking about our research. So if a professor is not on this URO, the student can still ask. So do students need to interview? And this really varies by professor. If a professor is conducting interviews, they'll reach out to the students who applied to their lab. Students are not obligated to contact a professor to indicate their interest in the project. So in terms of participation, here's data for the last few years showing the scale of our program. So roughly 170 to 200 students in a given summer, 40 to 50-ish faculty participate. Our total faculty body is about 100, so about half of our faculty are in this program. And the number that I personally feel most proud of is this number in the year 2020. So in 2020, we were fully remote because of the pandemic. And so that summer, all of those research positions were remote positions. Faculty pivoted to modeling projects, to theory projects. Some people were mailing kits to students to do things at home, but we mounted a summer research program as robust as we have in many years. And so I think this really highlights the community's commitment to summer research experiences for your student. And I will say in 2020, that just felt like the thing to do. Like, of course, we want to give students positions when other opportunities were canceled. And now with some distance, I'm very impressed by my colleagues. So a common question about summer research is, can your student do summer research and do a summer class, and do a big trip, and do a second job, and a volunteer commitment? And so I would say that it really depends. And students should treat summer research like a full-time job. Like if you had an internship at Google, would you leave to go to class? If you had your internship at Facebook, would you leave to go do a volunteer commitment? And so that would be kind of the way to talk about it with your student. If you have something big coming up, talk to your research professor, right? And figure that out together. But make sure your student is communicating with their research advisor about these commitments. The other thing I'll say about summer classes is that a 3-week class moves very, very fast. If your student is doing a class in the summer session that's only 3 weeks, your student would be well served to make that their primary focus for those 3 weeks, right? If your student is doing a 6-week class, it's still pretty quick, and they should be budgeting that study time. I've also noticed in my own research students, there's a lot of benefits to doing research as your major commitment and having your evenings and weekends to be with friends, to pursue hobbies, to rest up a little bit, do some reflection about what they want to do and how they want to move forward. So the take home is that summer research is a wonderful way to learn and grow. And I also want to encourage you, if your student applied to a summer research position this year and didn't get it, if they apply for a couple years and don't get it, they will have the chance to do research at Harvey Mudd. Every student does a senior capstone in computer science and engineering. That's a clinic project where they work with an industry partner. And in biology, chemistry, physics, often math, these are research projects with faculty. So if your student applies and doesn't get a position, maybe talk to professors, try again, definitely keep trying, talk to professors, make sure they get to know their professors, especially in their major, and rest assured they'll have opportunities to do some independent work. Okay, so with that, I think we have some time for some questions.
Great. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
team. We do have a few questions. Because you just ended up talking about summer session right at the end of yours, Kathy. Someone was asking, what is summer math? Because Shannon, on your slide, you had something called summer math, which is probably just a remnant word that it used to be called summer math because math was the only thing we taught in the summer, but now we teach summer session, which includes all the math courses that were part of summer math. So that is just a clarifying question about summer math versus summer session. This one's for you, Shannon. How often would you say you see offers actually get rescinded by the company? You talked a little bit about having to decline offers.
Yeah, we have had a couple instances of that, students coming in with that. Sometimes internships, like Kathy was talking about research, have had some research opportunities at other institutions that have not, either they've pulled the offer or they've mentioned you can still come work, but there's no funding. So that's a tough position for students to be in. We don't advocate for our students working for free. So it's not super prevalent, but it does happen. So I think in my 1 year here, I've talked to 2 or 3 students where that happened last year. And unfortunately, there's really not much we can do but support them and then, kind of start all over again with the search. So it does happen, and it's not that often though.
Yeah, I mentioned some of the big cuts in the last couple of years probably got a rescind for a summer job
We
kind
have
of
had
thing.
alum, of course, that have been affected with some recent layoffs too. So that's again just contributing to a competitive job market for the new grads, because there are experienced not only mudders out there, but from lots of different colleges that have had a couple years under their belt and then found themselves in the position to be looking again. So it just means they're competing against some experienced grads.
This is a pre-submitted question kind of about summer opportunities on campus and in the surrounding area. You talked about summer session. That is a summer opportunity on this campus. And the thing I think we haven't mentioned is there are summer jobs that are not research on this campus. There are a couple divisions that hire student workers over the summer. Shannon, can you think of any other opportunities?
You mean just local to Claremont? Well, you're right. There are some like the admissions office or other offices that will have summer work. I know that there's been we do have funds that Harvey Mudd has gained from our donors that will support initiatives for our communities. So I just participated in a bunch of those interviews. I think we had over 20 students apply with opportunities. Some of them are local to this area, some of them are not so local, but a lot of them have the funders priorities, like in the job description, which could be in some instances climate work, it could be a nonprofit work, it could be working with the community. And in those cases, funding can be tough for some of those organizations. So it's great when Harvey Mudd can provide a stipend for a student to do something that we know is in line with their professional goals. It fits their personal mission of how they want to use their skills, and it allows them to do that work where otherwise they wouldn't be paid. So there are, plenty of students that take advantage of that funding, and we'd love to support them in that way.
Is that through the Office of Civic Engagement?
Yes, correct. Yeah, we just went through the round, and I think they were able to award almost $60,000 in stipends, and I think it's going to affect 17 or 18 students this year. So it's a really great opportunity.
Great. Kathy, have you thought of anything other than that we might have missed nearby or on campus?
Nope, I think Shannon covered it.
Great. We've covered a lot of questions that were pre-submitted. Someone did ask, Shannon, I think you basically covered this, but like if a freshman specifically can't
Mhm.
land a summer research project or an internship and they end up working for a camp as a camp,
Mhm.
how do you help them translate that on a resume
Yeah,
for
I
future
mean,
work?
first of all, what we usually do is just, this happens in all of our resume appointments. Some bullets are written well, some need some help. So I just have them explain to me, hey, tell me a little bit more about what you did. And so as they're talking through the work that they did, we're thinking in the background, what kind of skills are we going to pull out of this? A lot of this is, mentorship, leadership. Sometimes if they're working with, a camp and they've designed a whole program, or maybe they're doing like STEM experiments with like a fourth grader or a fifth grader, then there's a lot of things that we can pull out of that and help them build some bullets that highlight some of that work. And so I showed you that resume tool that is optimizing for keywords. Not all the keywords are technical, so that's why some of the students will be like, "Oh, I didn't even think to put that on there because." But did you see like all of these soft skills that are mentioned in this job description? This is a way for you to add those into your resume. So a lot of times we just start with a conversation, and sometimes I'm like, wow, I understand what you did so much better by you telling me than by reading this bullet, because this bullet didn't tell me almost any of what you just said. So a lot of times it's just highlighting the fact that you're underselling yourself by this tiny little blurb that you put for a whole summer's worth of work. So it's just a matter of encouraging them to be bold. A lot of our students are very humble, and they feel like, a lot of things that they do might not be worthy to bring up or discuss. So that's another nod to like, please come in and talk to us, because we can help them see all of the things that they've done that they might be underselling or not really or discounting because they don't think it's, applicable. Since they didn't build, it's not rocket science, they're not going to put it on their resume.
For sure. And then like those on-campus jobs, being a mentor or a
Mhm.
proctor, I think those are building skills, but it's hard to remember when you're a STEM person that those are really useful
Yeah,
things to
all of those
include.
soft people skills are really important, and it's a big thing that employers are looking for. So yeah, we have to remember to bring those up in collaboration with all of their technical skills.
Perfect. Someone just asked if they could see the job placement statistics slide again. Shannon, are you
Sure.
able to pull up that job placement slide? I'm assuming that's the senior outcomes slide, or is there?
Let's see. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, it looks.
Okay. Is it?
Yeah, the senior outcome one for fall. That's what they.
And yeah, so that's just showing that, 62%. And again, that's not those that have like tried and failed. Some of them haven't even tried yet. So some of the feedback is, I'm not even going to think about my career search until I like backpack Europe and just like give myself a break. But some of those are, those that have been trying and haven't landed anything. Failing is the wrong word, by the way. Have tried and haven't landed anything yet, because it can take time.
So someone's asking for clarification that 62% get a job 6 months after graduation.
No, this one
No.
is at
Yeah.
on April 30th. So this is before they've even graduated. So
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to put that little asterisk, like if we polled them, which I'm gonna try to bring back this year, because I was like, hey, why don't we ask them six months later and see how
Yeah.
statistic has changed? We haven't done that as of late. So this year will be our first year where we do this like we always do in April, which is great because you can see a 94% response rate is very high. And then we'll check back 6 months later to see if we have a tick up
Yeah.
in the numbers.
So it's 62% have a job secured before they've even graduated.
Exactly.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Um, and they do have an incentive to fill out the form, of course, because everyone needs an incentive. They get their cap and gown. It's such a lovely little, you got to fill out the
They
survey and
hold
then
their
you get
cap
your
and
cap
gown
and gown.
hostage until they fill this out.
Yeah. But they will get their cap and gown
They do, no
eventually,
matter what. It's
no
not,
matter what.
no surveys are required, but we do love the high response rate.
Um, the person's asking, the two numbers add up to 100%. So do students decline to answer?
Yeah, so we have the luxury of a really great institutional research team here
Yeah.
at Harvey Mudd, and thank goodness they handle surveys like this. But yeah, what they'll do is toss out, sometimes people will just try to get through. They want their cap and gown, right? So they may answer, they may not answer. So yeah, this is of the respondents for those that were looking
Yeah,
for a role.
right. All right. Well, we're right at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you so much, Shannon and Kathy, for your great presentations and your informative insights. And thank you to our audience for your questions. We are almost at the end of our Family Focus series with our final event for families of senior students that go through all the details of commencement in just about a week and a half. So all past event recordings can be found online at hmc.edu/parent/family-focus-events. Not all of them up yet because I gotta edit the recordings, but it'll be up shortly after the events next week. So thank you all again for joining us and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
You.